All right, so there are a couple things I wanted to talk about with this level here because I feel like the ending was kind of dodged a lot, and a lot of people didn't understand setups, especially with the ending and stuff. So I just wanted to talk about a couple things. So the first thing, if anybody was wondering, above here it's just a spike, and for some reason when the screen is scrolled just right, you can only reach this spike when you have a mushroom. And when you're small, if you try to climb the vine, you'll never reach the spike, so you'll always end up down here small. But it is possible to hit this spike, and for some reason, because of screen scroll shenanigans, the the sound that is the the taking damage sound is very faint, but it is audible. All right, so for the ending here, I feel like again a lot of people missed what's actually going on. It is entity limit, but there is something else going on here. Also, I'm bad. So this mole right here, if you kill it, in fact, this cannon will shoot. But the way I timed it is that it will shoot instantly once you hit this P-switch. And that's because of this setup right here. This particular configuration allows the P-switch to be perfectly synced with the cannon. So once the launcher, once you hit the P-switch, it's perfectly aligned with the top here, so that the cannon will shoot instantly when you hit the P-switch. And that's all thanks to this setup right here. I don't know why this works, but this particular setup of tracks allows it to be perfectly aligned with the cannon. And another thing you have to do in order to keep the cannon shooting is for it to be on the screen at all times. So once you come into this room, the cannon has to be on the screen. So as you can see down in the very bottom right corner, right there, you can see the cannon on screen, and it has to be on screen because otherwise, if it's off screen and you load it on screen, the timer will be all messed up and the whole P-switch timer thing won't work. So it always has to be on the screen because the launcher has a timer that is constantly, it's basically shooting right now, even though there's a wall in front of it. So the timer is still going even though it can't shoot, if that makes sense. So then what happens is you kill the mole, and the P-switch is lined up perfectly to shoot a mole instantly, just like that. And I was really proud of this setup, and I think a lot of people missed the ending, and that's kind of too bad. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's supposed to be a jump scare, and you know, yeah, it was really fun. One other thing I wanted to talk about was this right here. So what's kind of unfortunate about this setup is that the spring in here actually clips through the wall and into this area here. But the problem with this is that it's kind of erratic, and the cannon just kind of shoots randomly sometimes. So what happens is this can screw you in multiple ways. If you're standing right on the donut and it hasn't fired yet, you'll just get launched into the spikes, just like that. And or if you're actually, hold on. Okay, if you're also standing right here and try to pick up the spring, you get thrown into the spike that way. But I really liked this setup, but the only problem with it is that the cannon just is globally shooting. So there's no way you can stand right here and have it activate, and you don't even have to go over here at all. And the problem with that is that because this setup requires a slope, and you can't make it not shoot until you go over here, for example. Because what I really wanted the player to do was to come over here first and then get screwed by the spring, but a lot of people are just staying right here and kind of reluctant to go over there. So it ends up shooting and they're fine. So if they just don't go over there, then they're fine. And that's kind of the problem, because this cannon is, it's an awkward setup, but it's a good payoff if they actually fall for something. So this setup is very straightforward. It is simply screen scrolling. So if you come in like this, the contraption won't activate because off-screen note blocks don't spawn anything. A note block, however, this one will spawn something because it's being hit by a shell. But if it's being hit from underneath by a spike ball, then it won't spawn anything. So the only reason this one works down here every time, is because it's being hit by a shell. And this one, the whole setup here is whether or not this one will work or not. So once you go down here and scroll the screen, now that note block is on screen, and all you have to do is come over here now and put on the shell. So it's a very simple, straightforward setup, and it's meant to screw you in multiple ways, just like that. So if anybody's curious, this is the setup for this area. If you come in small, the mushroom will bounce on this note block and hit and clip the muncher through the platform, which makes this mole leave its position, just like that, and then the contraption breaks. It's a lot similar to the Stevo setup in our collab also, where he kind of booped the mole through the platform, or the bomb, I think it was. But I couldn't use the bomb in this case because it had to be in this position, so it was kind of a hard setup to figure out, but this one worked. The mushroom actually just bounces, but then when you come in big, the fire flower just kind of leaves and it doesn't bounce on that note block. So that's how that works. And then of course you got the hyperspeed launchers on the right there. Yeah, that's how it works. Oh, another thing I wanted to talk about was these contraptions right here. So what's really convenient about this setup is that when you have a one-way here and a thwomp that is centered over a block, the thwomp will actually boop to the right and to the right of the one-way. So if you notice how it's like kind of centering itself like that, that is really convenient, because if it weren't, for example, let me try to show it here. If it were not booped like that, then the thwomp doesn't activate for some reason when you're holding left on the wall. So it's just barely far enough away to not activate. See, now if I decide to go anywhere else like that, see, then it activates. So the whole point of that is to center the thwomp directly on the wall with the one-way, and that helps with making it activate even if you hug the wall on the way down. And I also use the same setup over here. So right here, it's the exact same thing, and the only reason for doing this is because you can actually hold right on this block right here and it won't activate. So this is the whole point of that. This is the setup for the hyperspeed cannon. Oddly enough, for munchers, you don't need this one way, but for cannons you do. So it just ends up going in to itself, just like that. And then with the on-off blocks, all you have to do is hit the switch, and then it'll trigger. But it's just like any other hyperspeed downwards thing. It just happens to work with cannons too, but you have to have this one way for some weird reason.